All right. Oh, holy smokes. We've already got a bunch of comments in here. All right, Mr. BassGeek, I think we are live. Let's make sure we've got a couple viewers jumping on the screen here. I don't see anything yet. A ton of comments, though. I am surprised about that. Thank you guys for jumping in. And it's froze? Oh, please don't tell me it's froze. We had issues last time. The last stream that Randizzle and I did, it came to an abrupt stop.
Oh.
Let me know. Let me know, guys, in the comments right now. Are we okay? Is it froze? What's the deal here? Are we okay? Hopefully. Huh? DEBO'S, I have it on, but heading out. Okay, we got some people hopping on. It's working. Okay, I think we're good. We're good. All right, excellent. What's happening, Fishing friends? Welcome to another live. I have a guest here that I've been saying I was going to try to get on for a little bit. I know he is a busy man. He works a full-time job as well, building a house. I can see you've already got a pretty BA bait cave going on back there behind you.
See him. You can see some construction.
I like it. I like the whole peg, not just a little bit of pegboard. You have a whole peg wall. Is that right?
Yeah, they actually went with slat wall. It was a little more expensive, but when you're moving into a brand new house, you you look at your wife and say, well, I'm going to put pegboard all over the place. And she's like, oh my God, that's hideous.
Right.
So, you just I kind of go, well, this is a little more expensive, but it's real pretty. And she's like, okay, I can do pretty.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, I've got Hank, Mr. BassGeek on. Sir, thank you so much for taking some time to join me on the stream, talk with me. I'm excited. I know we're going to get into a whole bunch of fishing stuff, and like we were talking about before, a different view. My view here in the Midwest, I'm ice fishing. You've still got open water. We were talking briefly before, and I think a lot of that's going to kind of transition into my spring fishing, and kind of how we were fishing late fall. So I think it's going to be a good transition. We're going to talk some gear stuff. We're going to talk baits, and I'm going to rely on all of you guys leaving comments right now. Any questions you have for us, especially if you want to get a differing view. I always tell you guys, knowledge is power. Don't just rely on one source. Try to absorb as much information as you can. So hopefully we can try to answer some questions. But I'm excited. Hank, he has a channel, BassGeek. If you've not subscribed to him, check out his channel. Very similar to mine. We like to try to help people. We love to talk tackle, and that's what we are here to do tonight. What do you think, Hank?
Oh yeah. I always say at the end of my videos, I love to talk fishing. That's not a joke. I'm not kidding. I can talk about fishing for days and days. Just ask Debo. When he gets on the phone with me, he's probably like, God, I got to get off here with this guy.
I know. We were just talking about earlier. I said I need to find a mute button for you and some sort of bell so I can mute him and bell him and let him know that it's time to move on.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. I'll try to steer the conversation. I'm excited. It's everything here. I want to apologize for the last stream. Randizzle and I were abruptly stopped last time. I don't know what the hell happened. It just cut off. I tried getting back on and couldn't get back in. So hopefully we don't have that tonight. The winners, I still need to grab a winner. I said we were going to do 2 separate winners for giveaways last time. I did call out David Hagerot. Was the one random winner. I didn't hear from him. So David, if you're on tonight, make sure you hit me up on Instagram. I have a lure for you. And then I've also got 2 lures for anybody who subscribed last time. I'm going to pick a random winner. And we're doing the same thing tonight. So we've got a couple different lure giveaways going on. I've got this one I painted up earlier today, a little spook. It's kind of got some flames and such on it. Anybody that is on the stream tonight, I'm going to pick a random winner for that dude. So you don't have to do anything. And then anybody that donates, I've had so graciously people. I've already got somebody that just dropped some. Usama Khan with the 100% donation. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. I'm also going to give away to a random winner a couple of those guys. I did one in kind of like your Fire Tiger and one in kind of a 2-tone craw. Of course, you guys know what those are. A couple wiggle warts.
the right time of year for those.
Yep. Cold water killers. So anybody that's donating tonight, you're going to be entered in a random giveaway to win both of those. So I appreciate you all a ton. But enough of that. Hank, how did you get started in your journey of YouTube and your channel? What kind of got you going?
I had fished I've fished for years. I love the whole trying to solve the puzzle every day of bass fishing, and that's kind of what I've got into. I've fished for, ever since I was a kid, and did a lot of trout fishing, a lot of other stuff, but bass fishing, I just there's so many little pretties and rods and reels, and it's I just love that whole trying to put things together and catch things on different baits. And as far as YouTube goes, I actually coached offensive defensive line for a local high school for about 13 years, and I used to do a lot of film work, and just so happens I was watching an old tactical bassing video, and they were talking about how you need to have a GoPro even if you're not making a YouTube video, but kind of, just to watch it like you watch game film and see the way you're doing, because you can't always remember exactly what that retrieve was or whatever. And so one weekend I was like, oh, I remember every fish I ever caught, where it was, what the retrieve was. I was like, that's BS. And so I actually got the school's Sony Handycam at the time.
You stole the school's cam to go fishing and create your own YouTube?
Yeah, just to strap it to my back seat on my bass boat.
Was this a VHS? Was this an old VHS cam?
No, it was just like
one of those
internal
minis?
hard drive.
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
it was at least MP4, but like low quality, right? And so I strapped it to my back deck, and that's when I was actually learning how to fish an Alabama rig. And the first time I ever went out and had a stellar day, the first bite I got, I was coming by a stick up in the middle of a deep cove, and my first catch was a double.
Your first A-rig was a double?
Double
Wow.
smallmouth. So, yeah.
There's people that have never done that their whole time fishing.
Yeah, so,
That's crazy.
but, I kind of did that, and in high school, I did a lot of television production stuff before me and my wife of 26 years got pregnant with my son our senior year. I was actually going to go to college for, kind of sports broadcasting.
That's cool.
So.
And you kind of put your two loves together and made it work? That's awesome.
And, yeah, so so I kind of had a little bit of background in it. I hadn't done it for years, and then I just I was like, well, I've got to find some editing software and make this, better. All these hours of me not catching fish, let me condense it down. And then my kids seen it, and a couple of guys at work, and they're like, you have to do a YouTube channel. And I was like, no, I'm not doing a YouTube channel. I'm a fat old redneck, and I'm like, nobody wants to watch me catch fish. They're like, no, you really need to do a YouTube channel. And I was like, no. So it took me a few months and a little bit of a convincing. And like I said, I'm amazed at where my YouTube channel is.
Oh, same, man.
Never expected to be at, closing in on 40,000 subs. I never would have thought that in a million years.
That's awesome.
Never would have thought that.
Yeah,
so.
same. You'd be surprised what people watch. A dummy in Iowa and a dumb redneck. We make good videos. Now, BassGeek, I've always wondered, I don't know if you've ever told me, where'd you get the name BassGeek?
Well, I'm a network engineer. I'm a Cisco engineer, so I'm a computer geek, which is why, if you ever notice on my channel, I have some really in-depth, Sonar and graph videos.
Yes.
And so being a computer geek, that stuff kind of is pretty easy to me.
Gotcha.
And so,
okay.
I was like, hey, computer geek, BassGeek. Well, it just kind of works.
I like it. Yeah, if you guys need Sonar stuff, dude's a wizard with the Sonar. I'm going to probably have to pick your brain. I got, I don't even remember what it is. Something from my old aluminum kayak this year, so I'm going to be trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing with it. So I'm probably going to be calling you. Hey, help me.
Anytime.
We got some donations already coming in. Neil Bone said, hey, what's up, Debo and BassGeek? I love your how to fish a jig video. Hey, BassGeek. That's one of your most popular, I think, if I remember checking.
That is. I think everybody gets a kick out of me saying a tree pounder when I get a hold of a tree pounder. And, then I tell them, I'm like, I'm talking about the bite in that video, and I'm like, most of the time a big bass, it's like bass. It's a thunk. And a little bass is like treble. It's a ding ding. So everybody gets a kick out of my description.
Putting the music to it.
Yeah.
What else we got? Pima dropping a Pima 623. Is that how you say it? I don't know. Thank you very much for the donation. Trevor Wagner said, "Okay, I'm a novice using a frog. What speed reel should be used? Looking forward to gaining confidence in topwater this year." Man, I personally would say use what you're confident in. I use like a 7-speed. Some guys use an 8-speed. Randizzle, I know he's used like a slower. I think he was using like a 6-speed. I mean, use what you're comfortable with. What do you use, Hank, for frogs?
Well, now, I don't get to do a lot of frog fishing, at least not grass. But anytime I'm using something where I'm going to pull them out of the heavy cover or something like that, whether it be wood or grass, I'm going to use something faster. Now, what a lot of people don't know, I don't like a lot of, if I'm in open water, I'll go above that 8-speed. But once you start to get above that 7, you get into that 7.5, that 8, you lose torque in that reel. So what you'll see a lot of guys, when they're in the slop, they'll reel down and lift that rod. Reel down. You're not going to crank them out of that slop with something above about a 7, really 7.5. So when I'm flipping and stuff into the heavy cover, I like that. I like to stay around that 7.5 range. And so if I'm going to be throwing a frog, generally I'm going to be throwing it over some crap or around some docks. I'm going to stay in that area.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great point. I think Gerald Swindle talked about that on one of his videos. He said he doesn't use over like a 6-something speed just for that exact reason. He's saying a lot of things that if you need to take up that slack and get them out of there, it's a bad habit, or you should have done something before that. He's adamant about that. So it's really just depends on you. I know some guys that I think it was Fletcher Shryock or Hunter, I forget which one I was watching, a video where he was talking about using the Revo rocket, super fast one. That's what he liked, in case they hit it and run. So it's up to you. Use what you're comfortable with. Lee Ayers said, next live stream, Debo and Stubbs. Thank you very much for the donation, Lee. I'll try to get Stubbs on here. He doesn't like to talk a whole lot, though. He's kind of a jerk. Let's see what else we got. Bob Davis, he said, I'm in. Thank you very much for the donation, Bob. And Anthony dropping the donation saying, keep killing it, man. Well, thank you very much, brother. Well, Hank, I know kind of a couple things that I wanted to touch on real quick. The first thing I kind of talked about when I introduced us is kind of the pattern of where you're at now. So I'm in Iowa. Tell people where you're at. What's the water temp like, and kind of what are you doing to catch fish now?
Well, I'm on the border of Southwest Virginia and Northeast Tennessee. So on the border of Tennessee and Virginia. The bigger lakes I fish, and the lakes I'm going to fish right now, are mostly Tennessee lakes. I like chasing those big smallmouth over there. The lakes over here actually can, in Virginia, because they're a little higher up in the mountains, they will actually, during a major cold front, they'll actually freeze up. Now, you're not going to be able to ice fish on them. You will swim if you try to walk out.
Go fishing yourself underwater.
Yeah, but the lakes over in Tennessee don't tend to freeze up. And so right now, you've really got a few predominant bites. I mean, there's always a jig bite when it's cold, but mostly what I enjoy doing this time of year is a technique called the Demiki rig or the drop rig. And it's kind of vertical fishing. I tell people it's like ice fishing, except for, on soft water. So you get out, you fish with a very small little do-nothing bait. You've got a 90-degree line tie. Actually, I think I've got one right here.
Yeah, grab it. 1 minute. So Hank and I were talking about this before, using like a little straight tail, almost minnow-looking thing. He'll show you. But like we were talking about, it's similar. You've got to remember that the water around him right now is mid-40s. So it's really like he was saying, ice fishing with a little bit bigger setup. Those fish are just a little bit more active. It's not, 39 degrees like when I was out on the ice the other day. But yeah, go ahead and show us.
Yeah, it's the water temps here stay about, mid-40s, mid to low 40s. But that's kind of what I use. That's called a sour grape by Bass Munitions. Sorry, it's a little hairy where I've dropped it in the floor. But
just gives it character.
And that's like a ledge head lures. What I like about this head, you'll see the 90-degree line tie, but what I like about this head is all the weight is actually down here. And the deeper you go, and we're fishing this, like right now, the target area is probably going to be right around about 50 feet. They'll get down as deep as 80 at times. And so the thing about this is, as you drop a plastic down and that water pressure builds, the plastic wants to fight against it. And so if everything's weight forward, the bait wants to start tipping up.
Oh, interesting.
So this weight here kind of helps keep it a little more keeled out, a little more straight.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that. I don't fish super deep. Really deep water fishing scares me. If you guys want deep water ledge fishing stuff, Hank's your guy. That stuff frightens me, though.
That's the only way you'll catch them here, except in the spring.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking about that too. So you're fishing kind of mid 40s right now, Demiki rig. Are there any other things that you use like besides that? Because you said at certain times, I don't know if that's going to happen again, kind of this spring when it starts warming up, but we were talking about, one thing I wanted to talk about was some gear. And he was being a grumpy old man and said, I don't know that there's any new gear that I want to use. He said, what that does remind me of, though, is bites. So you said there's kind of a very specific time for a Demiki rig bite, and then kind of what happens. Can you talk about that?
There is, the Demiki rig, and like I said, there's always a jig bite. Right now, though, the three bites that I really like, the Demiki rig's the most dominant. And then you've got a rib swim bait, a very small Kitech, bite, and an A rig. If you get a few days of warm up, like yesterday it was 50 degrees, the day before it was almost 50. Well, today as we dropped off and we're starting to get a little cold front coming in, that A rig bite would actually be real good because the water temps aren't going to just drop off. As you move into spring, the fish begin to move up, so you begin to get these, a good crankbait bite as the water begins to dirty up. And they drain the lakes here. They drop the lakes 25, 30, some of them 40 feet for winter and spring rains. And so when they start bringing those back up in the spring, of course, it dirties them up. So that's when your rock crawlers, your rock crawlers.
Basically a big version of this guy, essentially. Cold water crank, that's what I was talking about, giving you guys
your wiggle warts come into play. Yep. Now, as it's still a little colder, you use those flat sides. That's when those, right now, like I said, in the early spring, those flat side bosses that are real famous in East Tennessee, you get those a lot. See, all my gear is still down at my mom's where we just moved in. The only stuff's hanging on the walls is stuff out of the back seat of my truck right now.
Nothing wrong with that. You should always have some gear on you. I don't have any on me. But yeah, those flat sides have a little bit tighter, different wobble, kind of like almost like a lipless and a crankbait, square bill or, whatever combined.
The Spro Little Johns is like a plastic version of it. What's the new Rapala bait that they just come out?
The Fritz side?
The OG from Rapala.
Oh, yeah. It's the Berkeley Fritz side is one they came out with, and then, the Rapala OG, that odd
default. The Fritz side is another. Now, you want to know something funny. Speaking of baits, right?
I got him going. Here we go. I can see the twinkle.
Yeah, so this is when I wished I had my crankbait box up here. I've got a couple of Fritz sides hanging up here. Do you guys remember?
I've got one. I can go grab one. Go ahead.
Who was it that made them? Bagley. Somebody made, it was this balsa coffin bill. And if you look at the Fritz side, they are basically versions of this flat side coffin bill. Again, I don't remember who made them. It might even have been Bomber, but it was a balsa bait. And that's what, that kind of goes to show you the more things change, the more they stay the same. But I don't know if you remember them. I can't remember if it was Bagley or if it was Bomber. Oh, excuse me. But they made it was a coffin bill that was almost identical. Now, they don't make them anymore. I've got a ton of them because they were killers. But it looks just like the Fritz side. It is identical, except, the Fritz side, they put the weight in the front so that you can cast it.
So here's the Fritz side. You can see they've got the weight chambers up here. You can see, look how skinny it is. Real skinny, slender. This is the shallow diver. They make it in, I think, 3 different diving depths. This is kind of like your square bill. I got these. I got some of the kind of the mid depth. But yeah, cool little bait. Real tight wobble on it. This is a 6 cents. What is this? The Flat Crush 75X. Same thing. You can see it's a little bit bigger profile, but still that flat side.
Yep.
See the 2 there? Oh, in the middle. Still that flat side to keep that tight wobble. You know, the fish don't want a real wide, crazy, erratic, darting action in that cold water. So that's when guys go to those flat sides.
And that's kind of the deal where I live. There's kind of this progression of baits. Like, you know, you'll move through those, and then all of a sudden, you know, that A-rig bite will just it just turns on, and I mean, gosh almighty, you can just slay big bass on that.
I need to get on that. I threw that for the first time this year. I didn't catch anything, but I have no confidence in an A-rig.
Well, it takes a minute, but I'll tell you, just think of it as a big spinner bait, right?
That's what I've heard guys say. Yep.
Yeah, you need chop on the water, or some sort of dirty water or low sky, and that's when it's really at its best. Instead of running it through, like I love to run it across brush or lay downs, but just remember, you know, you're not going to tick the brush like you would with a spinner bait. That thing is big, so it's going to call them up out of the brush to come get it. So you just want to keep it just above it most of the time.
That is a good point. Let's see. I've got a ton of comments. I'm way behind. I know I say this every time. Sorry, guys, but Dinks Outdoors, well, you're welcome with me, said, hey, Debo, can we win the giveaway without donating? Yes, I've got 2 separate giveaways going. So just the one, I'm going to pick somebody random here toward the end of the stream. You don't have to donate. And then for anybody donating, they're going to go into a separate giveaway. So yes, you can. I had another question here. Matt Garcia did ask when you were talking about jigs, Hank, he said, Debo and BassGeek, what's your favorite jig color and style? That's a whole open book of stuff. It's going to depend on time of year. It's going to depend on water. Let's say right now with colder water temperatures, or let's just say your go-to. If you could only have one jig, what do you think is your most universal jig and color?
It's absolutely going to be an Arky style. Some people call it a flipping jig, but it's a flatter head. And the color is going to be a color that I actually discovered from Strike King on their old Pro model. Remember their rattling Pro model that you can get at Walmart for a little bit of nothing? And
it was I think it was Denny. Was it Denny Brower on?
Yeah. The skirts fall off. Yep. But I've got to the point where I know how to make them. I've actually got all the stuff and keep it in my boat now. But it's a black, brown, amber. That color plays anytime. It's black. It's brown. It's got a little bit of amber in it. What else do you need?
Simple colors, simple natural colors.
Yeah.
I'm kind of along the same line. I would choose. There's kind of like a rounded flipping jig. I don't have one here, but it's kind of like a mix between a War Eagle and like an Arky style. So those War Eagles that you've heard Randizzle and I talk about, mixed with that kind of turned up rounded style. It's just a little bit more compact. But I like those. And for me, it would just be like a green pumpkin. And then if you wanted, a little color, you could add like a black trailer on it. That kind of gives it that silhouette. Or you can stay natural with like a watermelon trailer, and that can really tackle anything for you. So pretty similar to what you would use. Let's see. I think we're through everything else. Let's go into, Hank, one other thing I wanted to ask you about. I know we talked about baits, and I kind of talked with Randizzle on my last stream about this. Do you have much experience throwing wake baits, like wake cranks or wake? Do you throw a lot of wakes? Because that's something I'm going to do. I kind of skip over them. One thing we talked about was, for me, it's either a topwater bite. So, early in the morning, I'm throwing that topwater, trying to get on that good morning bite. And then once that dies off, I feel like I'm going on to other stuff. I'm trying other search baits. I might start pitching a Texas rig around stuff, maybe throwing a frog under overhangs if there's still some, shade. But when would you go with a wake bait, like over a topwater, or before I switch to other stuff? What's your take on that?
For me, a wake bait, there's a couple different types a year. And then, during the summertime, during the early morning, you can throw those big wake baits, right? But for me, 90% of the time, I'm more of like the tournament guy. So, I'm always pretending like I'm practicing for a tournament, trying to get better. So for me, wake baits are a big fall producer. Wake baits for me, there's a bait, and I've actually got a video on this, and it's actually not a wake bait, but it is a local area. It is one of the best producing wake style baits out there, and it's the Bomber Long A.
Bomber Long A. I'm writing this down.
Yeah, and it's actually a jerk bait, but it's a horrible jerk bait, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Bomber will never sponsor me, but it's a
hey, you blew that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a god awful jerk bait. But basically, it's you just cast it out. You keep your rod tip high as it's out far. Try to keep the line out of the water so it doesn't, and you just reel it real slow, and it just rolls and waits.
Spro.
Now,
I think Spro just came out with something like that.
Yes. Rapala's got one like it. Spro come out with it. And let me tell you a secret about Spro. You may tell you why Spro come out with that? Because who is Spro's number one pro? John Cruz.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So John Cruz actually comes every single year to the Watson's Marine in Bluff City, Tennessee open house. So guess where he learned about throwing and not from me. I'm not going to take credit, but the guys.
I thought you were going to say you. I thought you were just going to go for it. Do it. Tell everybody it was you.
But that's one thing that is huge in this area during the early spring and even into, if you've seen, I was catching topwater in December,
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
I was calling smallmouth up. They were coming from 90 feet straight up to hit that bait. Now, I was catching them on a Rico. I could not get them to hit my long A or my wake baits that day. But that long A, that wake bait, is a big deal. And so what happens is I tell people this all the time. You always hear a lot of people going brand name. But I'm telling you, you go to these expos and you sit there and you say, there's no real big brand names. But the guys that really make the latest, greatest, the things that are before the people like Mans or Strike King or Z-Man buys them are the people at these shows.
The smaller companies that are...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where these shows go. Demiki, for example, to that same little show. This is a little marina, man. I mean, a little tiny marina in the mountains. Demiki sends Daniel, I can't remember his last name, all the way from the West Coast, and they come out, and a year later, when they see the Demiki rig of my buddies, which this is one of my buddies that makes this head, a year later, they come out with a head that looks almost exactly like it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, the tackle industry is just, it's kind of a rough, cutthroat place, man. Like, a lot of people don't understand a lot of the plastics and stuff. Companies don't have patents on it. It's just kind of a lot of generic stuff. That's why you'll see companies with, the same lure. I mean, almost the exact same lure. Now, sometimes they'll take those molds and do a little tweaking to it, or, kind of put their own spin. But that's why I always kind of like shake my head when, when you hear this person copy that person and stuff. Like, I mean, I can buy do-it molds that look exactly like a Kitech, that look just like the Gary Yamamoto Zacho, and make them myself in my basement, put my name on it and sell them. There's nothing wrong with that. So,
well, how's the old saying go? The greatest compliment is
great
imitation.
Form of flattery.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Now, I do have a problem when it's like when it's blatant. That rubs me the wrong way. But and I don't know. And to me, that it's a fine line. Like, I've kind of just contradicted myself. Like, I can make something that looks just like a Zacho and sell it myself. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a mold I can buy from Do It. But if Berkeley come out with an exact replica of something from, I don't know, Mans or some other maybe smaller company, it kind of makes you look at them like, really? Like, are you doing that? So, I don't know.
30%. That's all it has to be different. It's 30% to get around a patent.
Yep. Yeah,
It's like I was telling a buddy of mine he was going to buy Garmin's, upgrade his electronics. So back in the day, Lowrance was the only one. Now I'm getting ready to make people's nose bleed right here, okay?
Uh-oh.
So when you talk about electronics, you need to learn about frequencies, okay? So frequencies, the general frequencies that electronics work on. We're going to talk about down imaging and right now. 455, 800, and 1200, right?
So what's that mean for dummy terms? Because I'm new to this. So does that just mean
the lower the number, the more the beam penetrates the water. It also has a lot to do with cone angle too, but trust me, we're not getting into that right.
Yeah, we're 30 minutes in. We don't have another 2 hours, Hank.
Yeah, that 455 is a stronger. Just think of it like being a stronger flashlight. 800 is a little weaker, but it's more defined. You can see the branches of the trees better. 1200 is the mega, and so it's really weak, but you can see much more definition in that shallower water. And so Lowrance back in the day were the only one that could actually have the 455 and the 800 and the 2D sonar in a single transducer. That was their patent. So everybody else, like Humminbird, they had interpretive down imaging. So what that means is it would actually read the side imaging. So it was true side imaging, and it would take the 2D sonar and it would actually interpret, kind of like if you left out all the ofs, ises, is, these, and on a letter, we could still read it, right?
Right.
But that's kind of what Humminbird did. So it wasn't a true down imaging. Well, how'd they get around it? Because eventually when they came out with the megas, they actually added true down imaging. They added a new beam, 1200 mega. So now they could actually add, because you had 3, and it was 30% different. Now, what's funny is Garmin has done the same thing, but they can't do one, so one or the other. So what they do, they came out with 800 and 1200 and dropped 455. 30.
Because they can only have the 2.
Yeah. So or have it 30% different. So companies find creative ways to get around things.
That's crazy. That stuff's all over my head. I'm probably going to have my stuff set up backwards and like off to the side. And I'll have my sonar over here and I'm fishing over here thinking I'm over here. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm catching stuff. Hell, people that know what they're doing are going to be looking at it like, this guy's an idiot. G-Fan Kim dropped the donation, said, is it my birthday? My 2 favorite anglers streaming live. Well, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. Fisherman83 with the donation. Thank you very much, brother. Greg Hinton, a local Iowa boy. Yo-yo, loving the BassGeek backstories. Actually get to watch a live vid when it's live. Hey, and that's fine. If you guys can't catch the live till later, not a problem. I appreciate no matter when you watch. Jesse Smith said, keep up the great work, Debo. Looking forward to the live stream. Thank you, Jesse, for jumping on. Rob Harrison, another frequent viewer of my channel. Love the videos, sir. Great to see BassGeek. Rob, thank you very much for the donation. And Doug H. just dropped the donation. That's all. Thank you very much, man. And, Neil. Of course, Neil. We talk a lot offline for the donation. Thank you very much, man. So let's go through. Let's try to grab some questions. Have you been looking at any questions, Hank, or anything that you wanted to go over?
I have not, man.
Okay. Let's see. This may explain why some of the fishing kayaks have more GoPros on them than rods. I don't know where this came from. I'm probably behind. Debo and his barley pop. Yes, I do have an adult barley pop here with me. Let's talk about gear. That was one thing I wanted to touch on tonight. Is there any new rods, reels, line, any piece of gear that you're excited about trying this upcoming year? I know you still have open water, but maybe as it moves into summer or whatever, anything?
Gear-wise, there's a few things that I'm excited about trying. I know Akuma is coming out with a Psycho rod, and I'm going to get my hands on one of those. And it's like they're super high-end, so I cannot wait to actually get that and try it. I'm actually planning on, speaking of electronics, I'm actually planning on updating my electronics this year. So hopefully the first of the year, I'm going to add a couple of units. Humminbird is coming out with a live, like the Garmin live, so I'm going to kind of wait and see how that stacks up, see what it looks like and how it's going to work, and decide which way I'm going to go there, whether I'm going to go with the Humminbird live or the Garmin stuff. But that's probably the stuff that I'm excited about. What I'm really excited about is just getting out on the water and getting back into that tournament sort of style fishing, trying to break down, because I've spent several years doing exactly what you're talking about. And that's learning techniques, learning baits. Excuse me. And now I want to put all that together and get out there and break lakes down, figure things out faster, and catch more fish.
Yeah,
that's what I'm excited about.
That's kind of one of my things too. Like I said, I got a hell, I don't even remember which one it is. It has down and side. That's all I know because I know people have talked about that. If I can figure it out, I know it's supposed to be a good deal. I sent a picture of it to you when it was on sale, and you said, "Yep, that one will do you really well." I got a good sale on it, so that's one thing I'm excited about using. Mild Man, I've grown up with just kind of the simple electronics. He's good at just reading, like if we knew where road beds were or if we knew where a hump was, he was good at just watching that depth. And then old school, we just throw out a marker buoy, and fish it that way, and we'd kind of fish around. You'd drag stuff, you'd crank stuff over it, and that's just kind of how we did it. In the old day. With me bank fishing, you'd throw on a jig or a Carolina rig or a Texas rig, and you'd literally just start dragging ponds until you found a big rock pile or found a tree or something, and then, you try to attack it. So it's going to be different for me. Like, we were talking about the Garmin Live Scope and all this crap that they have out now. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah.
It is crazy.
So that's one thing for me for sure. Just trying to get into some of the electronic stuff, trying to figure that out. I think it'll be fun. As far as gear, I don't know. I don't know that I have anything really specific. I've picked up a few new rods and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, just everything. I like trying it all out. So
that's me. Like I said, I'm looking forward to specific bites. I kind of got on a specific A-rig bite a little late last year during the spring. Caught some big old largemouth on a smallmouth lake, and I really love to chase those smallmouth during the winter and into the spring. And what we call the little green worm bite. And what basically that is, you see a lot of guys up north, New York and Michigan, they're using that, what's it called, that flogger or whatever, looking down, being able to see those smallmouth on the beds.
I don't know. Whoa! Are you talking about the big?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the big cone thing or whatever?
Cone thing.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yep.
And, down here you can't see that. So you kind of have to learn what rock they use and how that rock lays out. So, and basically what you do is you use a little finesse worm and, a real light, either Texas rig or, I like to wacky rig it, weighted wacky a lot of times. And you just throw it out there and just kind of drag it down. And, man, those 3, 4, 5 inch or 5 pound 5 inch.
That's me. That's me catching those. Yeah, wrong channel.
But those big smallmouth like that, man. I mean, you're in close proximity, and when they're on the bed and you feel it pick up and you set the hook, they are ticked off.
That's one thing I want to do more. Trying to get on smallmouth. We've got a few small places around here. I don't fish the river a ton. So I know I need to get into that more. But that's one thing I want to focus to is more smallmouth.
Yeah, that's something I hope to get to do a little more. It's actually a little more bank fishing, but there's, me and you talked about this a lot, and I sent you that picture. If you look out my, I mean, it's just a mountain,
you're much different landscape. We're in the Midwest flats and, corn and prairie and, a lot different.
There's not a lot of ponds, so it's going to have to be a lot of stream fishing for me.
Yeah, that's still fun. People love that, too. Yeah. That'll definitely get views as well. It's fun, just wading down those. We've got a few spots here I need to try on that, put on some, hip waders or whatever and just go. That's fun. I saw Jim was in here. Tackle Junkie, TJ81. He's another good friend of ours. He's a good guy. Follow him. Jim, thanks for dropping in. Hello, Bass, dropping in. Thank you, brother. I'm glad you could make it. Randizzle just sent me a text that he asked a good question. I was going to have all three of us on here, but unlike you, I'm a technological idiot, and I couldn't figure out how to break my Skype into two people. I know I'm probably sounding really stupid now. The program I use Streamlabs, so to get this like overlay that you guys are seeing, like my name down here and his name, and it's I don't know, I'm not good at all this. So Randizzle, I apologize I couldn't get you on here, but next time hopefully old dummy Debo will get it figured out. He sent me a question I'm gonna have to look up here. Let's see. I did see another good question, and it scrolled me back up. What was it? Oh, here we go. Question for BassGeek. Tips for pond bank beaters. I'm not trying to get better on my quick trips. I don't know what that means. Lee, what do you mean there? I'm not trying to get better on my quick. So
I would say he's just trying to get out there and break that pond down quickly. You know, a quick trip. I just want to go catch some fish real quick. You know, and ponds are great places to do that. And really, Debo knows this better than I do. Like we were just talking about, you know, he's got a lot more ponds, a lot more small bodies of water. But, you know, for ponds, everything is about seasonal migrations. So the very first thing I can tell you is learn those seasonal migrations. Make sure, you know, you're paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing and whether you should just automatically pick up something like the bait me and Mr. Debo hate. And even though we're both getting better at it, the drop shot, or if you can start right off with a spinnerbait or a chatterbait or a square bill and work the sides of that bank. You know, you go out right now, if your pond's not froze over, you need to find the deepest area. And, you know, and that area can be muck bottom, but it needs to have something hard. There either needs to be a steep drop off, or, you know, and it could be 6 inches, you know, a drop literally 6 inches, or it could be just the deepest point that's got a stick laying in it. I mean, they'll congregate on a stick if that's what it is, and they'll stack up in an area as big as your, you know, the hood of your car.
Yeah, that's a good point, Hank, and that's something I need to work on more. So, like, when I'm talking to people about finding fish, and I'll argue that till I'm blue in the face, being able to consistently find fish is the biggest thing that separates a pro from a weekend angler. You know, you talk to 100. A guy who goes out and, you know, I couldn't find him today, you know, right? Yeah. To me, like, a pro can consistently find fish, you know, they can get on them. And like you're saying, that's something I need to work on, is because, like, I don't get to fish a ton of huge lakes. So if somebody dropped me off at, like, you know, Harris Chain or Okeechobee or, you know, any of those and said, okay, where are the fish going to be? Man, that's hard. I'm used to, you know, 500-acre lakes, you know, breaking those down. That's kind of easy. But if you've got, you know, a lake that's part of a huge river, or like the Mississippi, even to me is foreign stuff. So learning those, you know, the two big things that are going to dictate what that fish is doing is food, I guess kind of three things: food, cover, and the time of year, right? Like you were talking about those migrations. Where are they going? You know, is it pre-spawn, post-spawn? Are they chasing food? Are they not really in the mood to eat? Are they on cover? You know, how to pick all that apart and break it down. Yeah. Randizzle asked an awesome question, and this is one that I've actually marinated as well. So thank you, Randizzle. How would tourney guys do back in the day? Whoops. How would tourney guys do back in the day without all the fancy stuff they have today versus, or vice versa? And that's something I've thought about. So I think kind of what he's saying is, okay, so the tourney guys now have all that fancy stuff. And, you know, a lot of them have kind of grown up on that. Not all of them. But, you know, some of the younger anglers, how would they do if there was no electronics? Okay. So let's talk about that first. How do you think some of those guys that are, you know, kind of use electronics as a crutch will hear people talk about? Now, I'm not saying that because I don't even know how to read the damn thing. But
well, you know, one of the things, you know, just to say how important electronics have become, is I tell people all the time, you know, really electronics are more important to us than they are to the pros, because the pros are spending so many days on the water. Now, it helps them break a lake down faster. And honestly, so many people now have learned. It's like the guys in the 10 boats. I've gone brain dead. What is his name in the comment section? The pro that fishes shallow all the time. He fishes out of a crest liner, and he's old school. I mean, he's going to the farthest back regions of the lake. So how would the new guys do without electronics? 50% of the field would be lost. But the other guys, they spend so much time on the water. And that's the key, and that's why I say...
Oh, is it Johnny Cox? John Cox?
Yes, John Cox, yes.
Thank you, Backlash Pro.
Yes, thank you. But John Cox is the epitome of old school. I mean, he could care less. He can use it, but he is going to go shallow 99.9% of the time. And he's going to go shallower than anybody else. He's kind of revolutionizing the shallow water game. There's always shallow fish. You know, we were talking about bites earlier. Even this time of year, one of the bites that I was talking about was a small Kitech. You know, reeled it real slow. That's going to be a relatively shallow, 10, 15 feet. You know, you can get a few bites even in my area on the coldest days. But I think you're going to have guys who are going to be able to break lakes down without those electronics. And I think you're going to have guys that rely a lot on the electronics that are going to be hurting. Now, I'm one of those guys, I rely on electronics. But it's like I tell everybody, everybody's like, well, I don't need these big. No. Me and you, we need the most electronics we can find. You know why? Because we get 1 day on the water. We get 2 days on the water. And,
I think that's also a matter of where you grow up. So you fish a lot of deeper stuff. So like I was saying around here, the lakes and stuff that I grew up fishing, 1,000 acres is, a decent sized lake around here. And me and my man, they'll call the people that just kind of run the track bank beaters, right? Where do we start? Yeah. I don't know. We don't ever really talk about, hey, Dad, let's go out by the dam and fish 60 feet of water and put a drop shot on. That's not our deal. So I think a lot of that's how you grow up. You'll hear like Kevin Van Dam or those guys fishing, those real clear smallmouth lakes. And if you don't have, electronics, like you were talking about, you'll find a pack of smallmouth butted up on a stack of rocks the size of a car hood. How are you going to pick that apart when you look at some of those smallmouth lakes that are miles upon miles? You get out in the middle of it, it looks like the ocean. You can't even see land, Yeah. So far different, a way different way of growing up. And I've talked to guys that are like that, like, oh, I can't imagine fishing that slop and stuff like you're doing. So it amazes me to think, that's how I've grown up fishing. There's guys that have never done this. I don't know. I've always grown up with my dad using electronics out in, 60 feet of water or whatever. So I think a lot of it's background too.
It is. But, what I'm saying though about electronics is even in the shallow stuff, you're going to be able to find those weed edge lines during the summer. Yep. It just helps you cut down on the time you're searching. And if you get in touch with those electronics, it'll help you find those fish faster.
Most definitely. Yep, I completely agree. So let's flip that around. So, okay, electronics and stuff are big now. What about the pros back then? Bill Dance, Hank Parker, a lot of those guys that I watched growing up, Elias, Yellis, Fritz. How would those guys do now, do you think? Or vice versa? How would those guys that use electronics now, if it flip-flopped? Do you think there'd be a big difference?
Like I said, I think it would be a 50-50. You'd see guys like Roland Martin. Roland Martin was the Kevin Van Dam before there was a Kevin Van Dam. He didn't win a lot of Bassmaster Classics, but he won 6 Angler of the Year titles. The same with Bill Dance. Bill Dance probably would have won a lot more Angler of the Year titles, but there was more money in doing his own TV show. And did you know that Bill Dance was actually one of the co-founders of Strike King too? Did you know that?
He was one of the first guys also to fish in the first BASS sanctioned tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
correct.
And him and Roland Martin and a few other guys were really 2, 3, 4 guys, the top level guys at the time. So I think those guys, there's guys, they just have it, and it doesn't matter where you put them.
They just have that instinct to go out and fish.
They're going to have it.
Yep.
And there's going to be guys that, like you said, they depend on the electronics and all the new gadgets, and they would be hurting.
Yeah, I think somebody like like Jay Lee now is a guy that he just seems like you watch him, and there's sometimes he's keyed in on his electronics, he's doing that, and there's sometimes he's like, I forget which MLF it was. Gosh, is that 2 years ago? Hell, I don't know. I'm in my house too much, and I don't really know much of anything anymore. But he had this feeling. He's like, man, I fished these bridge pilings earlier in the day, didn't get a single bite. I just had this feeling. I went back, and he was catching them, boom, boom, boom. I don't remember what it was. I think throwing a jerk bait by it, and ended up just romping. I don't remember who he was neck and neck with. I don't remember, but I just ended up destroying him there. And I think somebody the next tournament, how MLF will do, different groups on the same lake. Somebody else the next, I don't know how many days are in between it, but somebody else got on that same thing. They're like, if you see a bridge, fish a bridge, just kind of that instinctive thing. And I think a lot of that's just time on the water.
It is.
Yeah.
It's, it really is just staying ahead of the fish, staying on top of what's going on. And that's why I say for us guys, us weekend warriors, especially when you go into spring, from winter to spring and from, summer to fall or to winter, every day is different. The only time you're going to see today is a year from now when it's today again. Yep. Where the summer and the winter things get stable.
Yep.
Whether it's stably warm or stably cold. And so really they're easier to find and catch at that time. But, during the fall and during the spring, you have to stay ahead of that movement.
Now, let's say we should probably get doing a giveaway here, too. We're almost at an hour. Man, time has flown. I saw a couple new questions about, like, spring fishing. So if you, coming out of winter, and for you it's going to be a little bit different water temperature, it's going to be a little bit sooner, it's going to happen for you. Coming out of that real winter, and to me that's kind of once you start kind of ticking up into the 50s, mid-50s, once it starts creeping up in there, you're starting to get into that good spring bite catching up. What are you throwing? Like, what's your number one pre-spawn thing that's worked for you?
It's all about the swim baits at that point, whether it be, stuff like that.
Is that like a paddle tail?
Yeah. Whether it's, big swim baits, 3-inch swim baits, I start going to those slick sides, at that point.
Oh, nice. Okay. What is that, like a 6-inch, 6.5 inch?
7. Yeah.
Oh, 7. Yep.
And so, that, the A rig and your crankbaits until they get up on the bed. And then, that's when that little green worm bite comes in and you're finding that right rock and you're throwing that worm up there and it's hang on.
Yep. My old man asked, BassGeek, what do you think of the difference between Panoptics versus Live Scope?
Now Panoptics, and forgive me because I don't have the names memorized. Panoptics, which is Garmin, and that's just kind of like the 2D version of it, right? And then you've got the Live Scope. Now, is he talking about the difference between Lowrance and
is there a difference? I don't know.
Garmin.
I've only seen the Garmin Panoptics in action.
There is. Lowrance, I'll be honest with you, when they came out last year with their version of Panoptics, it was awful. But they've stepped it up in their version of Live Scope, and it's dead on. Garmin still got a little bit of a lead. Now, if you're talking about the difference between Live Scope and Panoptics, like in the Garmin, I would lean toward the Live Scope a little more just because it's more detailed. Again, it's the same sort of way. Like I'm going to use 2D standard sonar for certain things, especially a lot of vertical fishing. But I'm going to get greater detail on that down imaging, and so it's a tool. In that sense, I'm definitely leaning toward the more Live Scope, and probably away from the Panoptic style. So I'd definitely go with the Live Scope. It's just more detail, and you can see everything just as good as you can on the Panoptics.
Okay, thank you, brother. I don't know anything about that crap. So, I did pick. Was just doing a random giveaway for people that are still here. I don't know. I don't know when I did the pick, but for the spook, custom spook that I painted up, it's got some flames and such on it. Todd Lester, if you're still on, you are just the random winner tonight. So if you're on, hit me up on Instagram. If you don't claim it, I'll pick somebody else in the next few days. But everybody else that donated, I'm way behind. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm almost at an hour. I've seen a bunch of people. Jacob Bryant dropped the donation. Thank you very much, brother. Nader8910 said Debo has the finger feeling after fighting with the orange chatterbait. For anybody that doesn't follow me on Instagram, this is something Randy has done too. He got an ice fishing jig stuck under his fingernail. But I was reaching, and I don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was reaching in my side pocket to get stubs out after I took the girls to school. But I found a chatterbait that I didn't know I had in there, an orange one. So I took a picture of it on Instagram. I've done that a few times, so make sure you keep your stuff organized, unlike me. Fish and Fat Man with the donation. Thank you very much, brother. I think that's a flatfish in your... Oh, no, that's a crankbait. It's a sweet color crankbait. Uriel Paz with the donation. Thank you very much. Don S. with the donation. Thank you very much, Don. I think I'm almost cut up. Jim Woodman. Thanks for all the great videos. Looking forward to lots more this year. I am too, Jim. Hopefully I can keep the videos rolling. And Kaysen McMullen, another regular on my channel. Thank you very much, Kaysen. So for me, going into spring, something I feel like I need to talk about is lipless crankbaits, a red lipless crankbait. You hear guys talking about red lipless crankbaits, throw red in the spring, and I never bought into it. I'm kind of a stubborn jerk like that sometimes. You know, you think you've got your ways to catch them, and you're stubborn in your own ways, and I don't need to do that because some other dude's saying it. But, man, a few years ago, I was out with Randizzle. We were at one of our local lakes, and I was throwing it, and it just got demolished. I think I caught like 10 on one side of the lake with that. And ever since then, yeah, I mean, it's true. So if you all are like me and don't throw like a red lipless crankbait, last year that was my first fish on it, fishing mud lines. So as that snow's melted, you've got lakes where that wind's pushing over the mud line, and you've got a distinct, like, you'll look and you'll be able to see an actual line of like dirty, muddy water and then clear water next to it. Those fish will sit in that muddy water and use it as an ambush as it's, blowing that bait in, just like they would a grass line or whatever. So throwing a red lipless in and around those mud lines. I was throwing a spinner bait the same way in those mud lines. So yeah, I guess the red lipless, if you don't throw it, give it a shot. I held out for too long, but they work. Let's see.
See, it's one thing around here. The lipless, it's more of a fall bite thing, kind of when they get up on the flats, It's you can get a few bites in the spring, but it's not as dominant then.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I had Backlash Pro, and I don't know what this was in relation to, but it clicked something in my mind. Backlash Pro said depth is relative, and that's a very good point, because when I say fishing deep, a lot of times in my local lakes, 20 feet is deep for me. 20 feet a lot of times, or 30 feet, can be the dam side on a lot of these little lakes that we have around here. Or, I'll be talking to somebody and I'll say, well, we were fishing, just off a rocky point. It drops off about 6 feet, and then it drops out into about 12 feet of water. And they'll say, oh, that's deep. And I'll say, well, how big is your kayak? And they'll say, well, I've got a 12-foot kayak. So I'll say, well, think of that about the size of your kayak. It's as deep as your kayak is long. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's not that bad. Whereas, like, somebody like you, what's deep for you, like when you're fishing deep?
Deep is when they get out there 50 foot or more.
Yeah.
See, like last year I was getting bit in 80 foot, and that was crazy. I mean, I was getting bit down in 80 foot. Now I've fished over a lot of depths and seen fish come up and hit. But last year I was getting bit in 80 foot of water, and I was like, this is insane.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what the hell to do unless I have my camera. I got a camera. I don't know if you got to see my last vid, but I got a camera for ice fishing. So
cool.
if I've got a camera down there and I can look at the fish, I feel like I'd have a better chance. Otherwise, 50 foot of water, I wouldn't know what the hell I'm doing.
The weird thing is just the feel. There's so much line, it almost deadens the bait in the feel.
Now, do you always go braid to a leader fishing that deep?
It depends on water clarity, because the water clarity in these lakes during the wintertime can get crazy clear. I mean, you're talking 20, 30 feet. So, I don't like and when you're out there on a gray day, and you get that reflection of that gray sky and that water, fluorocarbon, especially when you're fishing with a 6-pound test, can be extremely hard to see when there's a little bit of chop on the water. Mm-hmm. So I always use some sort of high vis, either yellow or like pink or something like that. And so you can actually
loves
see
you, pink line.
Yeah. So I try to keep, if I know I'm going to be fishing real deep, I try to keep just enough on there to where it's, no more than 10, 15 feet in the water of that braid. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want them seeing that kind of yellow or pink spaghetti noodle, up above them, being like, okay, this is a lure.
Right.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, because when I tie a leader, like if I'm flipping or pitching, is really the only time I'll do it on a bait caster. Otherwise, I'm honestly not a braid to leader guy on bait casters, but all my spinning stuff I do. And for me, a leader is going to be, that leader knot should be just before going into my reel. So I'm talking 10-ish foot, whatever that is, going all the way down to where I'm flipping or pitching, 7 to 10 feet of leader where it's not going into the reel. So, and I'm not fishing, crazy clear places like that. If I can see, 5 feet, maybe 10 feet on some of the spots, like that's really clear around me. But, there's some guys that don't even have that, 2 feet is clear for them, so.
Yeah, old Jim, it's like,
right.
6 inches.
Right, yeah, 6 inches. He's like, damn, it's clear out here today.
He's like, I better get out the natural color.
Yeah. Brought out the old Ned rig in a clear color. It got 6 inches of clarity. Yeah, that's a good point. That's the tough part. I know I've had people come to my channel and say, I appreciate the Midwest stuff. That's why I tell people, like, absorb from as many people as you can, even if you don't really like their channel. If they're teaching stuff, just try to at least take it in and adapt it to your stuff, or like pros.
Yeah.
I have people tell me that all the time, like, hey, Debo, I love that you're fishing from the bank. I don't watch pros because I don't have an expensive boat. Yeah. Man, I've said it time and time again, like, you can take the same things that those pros are doing and just kind of tune it to bank fishing, or tune it to your lake that's only 500 acres,
Yeah. That's one thing I always tell people, because, when I'm talking about jigs, 90% of the time I'm throwing a 1/2 ounce, a 3/8, even, this time of year I'm going to throw like a 3/4. Yep. And I'm like, look, if you're fishing a jig from the bank, you cannot throw those weights unless you just want to lose stuff constantly.
Yep.
So cut those weights in half or less. You want something that is going to be extremely light. That 1/4, 1/8, really 1/8 or less a lot of times.
Yep. Yeah. Like for me, I know Randizzle threw the 3/8 a lot. And just me kind of experimenting, I was trying with the, a 1/4 ounce, but I think 5/16 is like my favorite as far as throwing a jig from the bank. And like you were saying, it's different from a boat. Like when I'm in the boat, like 3/8 is kind of my standard. 1/2 ounce is usually my deal because, if I'm out in the boat with Dad, 10, 12 feet is kind of like normal, what we're fishing off of, jetties or along grass lines or stuff. So it really just depends how you're fishing. Like you're saying, if you're throwing a 3/4 ounce, I just want it to get down as quick as I can. I don't give a crap about all this stuff up here. I'm trying to get it down where I can start working it. I did have a good question. I lost it. Dinks Outdoors said, question for you. If you could have one bait for the rest of your life, what would it be? This is tough. I'd probably have to say 2 answers. Hank, go ahead. I can already see you getting loaded up over there. I knew that was coming. Swimbait. All about the swim baits out there.
Give me a 6-inch swim bait in a natural shad color, and I can fish that thing from top to bottom. I can fish it as a wake bait. I can drag it on bottom. It's as natural as it gets. I can fish it like a crankbait. I can fish it like a spinner bait. You name it. I can fish it. I throw it on a shaky head if you want me to.
and there's things like that. Like I know if Randizzle was on, he'd say the jig. I guarantee it'd be this jig. Probably the green pumpkin orange, if I guess. Is that what it is? Oh, damn, it is right there. I can't believe that. I think that's
Which is favorite. The same way. You can swim a jig, you can hop a jig, you can drag a jig. I've caught fish just reeling it back in and have them come up and destroy it.
Yep. For me, it would be like if I didn't care about catching stuff and just for fun, it'd be a frog for sure. Like if I could throw a frog all year, all day, Now, sometimes they're not on a frog. You get a complete calm day, high sun, you don't have any shade pockets or anything, probably not going to catch crap. Next to that, man, I don't know what I would pick. I don't know. Probably a Texas rig. I think that's probably been my most, if I had to guess, that's probably what I've caught the most fish on, is just like a Texas rig crawl or worm or something. It's like a quarter-ounce weight.
More fish have been caught on a Texas rig than any 3 baits combined.
Yep. They're a good one, especially for bank anglers, just because you can rig it weedless and not worry about most of the stuff unless you get into a bunch of rocks. But let's see. You haven't been looking at... Damn, you're leaving all the questions and stuff on me over here, Hank.
I'm sorry. You're the host of this damn.
I know. Get my crap together. Good Lord, what kind of a host am I? Here's a good one. This is a good point, Nicholas. Nicholas Torrillo says, fishing offshore does not always mean fishing deep. Most good ledges are only in about 15 to 20 foot of water. That's a great point. And I think, again, it's relative. What is deep? To some people, 10 foot of water is deep. They're not used to that. Fishing ponds where 8 foot might be the absolute maximum that they're not even touching. It
is. And most of your Tennessee, where the ledge fishing really began, the Tennessee River lakes, those ledges, they're 20 foot deep, 15 foot deep, 25 foot deep, and then it drops off into the river or the creek channel. So, yeah, even on the lakes that I fish, there's long points, and that point may be surrounded on 3 sides with water that's 190, 100, 120 foot deep, but you're still fishing, 15, 20, 25 feet.
Yep. Yep. I remember actually brought up a good point. Biscuit Beeblebrox. Are you guys just testing me to see if I'm drunk and can read these? Fishing on the Mississippi is about 8 inches of visibility. I haven't got to fish the Mississippi a ton. My old man loves to do that. I know he's caught some big smallies and stuff over there, but it's been, 4 years ago. We were fishing, it was a backwater. I forget what city we were by. A little backwater cut, right? A little inlet going back into a little, cut. I don't know, backwater up in there. But we found a hole with a bunch of walleye on it. And it was about, I want to say that hole was about 10 feet deep, if I can remember right. You go out into the middle of the Mississippi, obviously it gets a lot deeper than that. But, we were just kind of on the edge of it. We found this one little spot. I was throwing I think a 6 foot diving Gary Yamamoto crankbait. It was in that light blue and yellow. I forget what his crankbaits are called, but I can still remember it. And we were both just fishing over that one hole, and that one hole couldn't have been more than, 10 feet across. So it's things like that. Like if we had electronics and can find more of those and can replicate that, that was one my old man found, like I said, just going over and looking to see when you see that bump in the 2D sonar, you find it and fish it. So that kind of goes back to our whole thing again of, weekend anglers. If you have that kind of ability and can really see all that, like that opens up a ton.
It does.
It just sucks that stuff costs so damn much.
It does.
I guess that's why you have to take out a second mortgage to afford the boat and the Garmins and.
I always tell people, I'm like, I bought my bass boat for $12,000. Now that's a lot of money, but I mean, not in the bass boat.
Not in the bass boat world. I'd like to find one about that. If I could find one like 8.
And I've had my bass boat I bought it in 04, and I've had it since then. I mean, you can get in a boat. You just have to. You have to be willing to work on them. You have to be willing to keep care of them and keep them up. And, you got to get somebody to help you find one that's been taken care of. That's the big key. That'd
be another one a good one to get on. If I could find like a dealer. I've had multiple people ask me that. They're like, hey, I see you have a John boat. What should I look for in a good one? And I've had to reply to them, hell, I don't know. This is the John boat that my dad had when I was 5 years old. I'm like, I just got done putting Bondo stuff on the bottom of it and clearing up, sealing up the rivets.
But it's a John boat.
Yeah, right. But, that's a good question. Like, if I went boat shopping now, I wouldn't know what to look for. Make sure it's got a good hole. Of course, make sure you can take it out on the water and test it. Like, if they're not allowing you to do that, that'd probably be, big number one. Hell no, I'm not going to buy it. But, like, engine stuff, I would know what the hell to look at, looking at an engine or if it's good or if it sounds good. So that might be another one I have to find some sort of boat expert. If y'all know any boat expert Mercury, owner of Mercury, if you're watching tonight, I know you're probably on. Let me get with you and do a live stream. I did have another one. Let's see. What was it? What was it? I know another one I'm excited to use this spring. Hank, you were talking about lures. Oh, that's a good question. What are some of your favorite bass munitions? I hear you talk about them a lot, and I think are they on Tackle Warehouse?
They're not. They're not on Tackle Warehouse. No, they're not. And I don't know. I'm sad. I think he's going to keep a very limited, but he may end up walking away from it all, which makes me hugely sad because this is the best stinking swim bait body.
Yeah, I know you've talked about their stuff a lot. He makes some good looking stuff. That one purple one you showed me was killer. Yeah,
I mean, man, this swim bait body, it's an injection, but what I love about it is you can see it's got a flat top, it's flat side. I mean,
those are back in style now, flat tops.
Yeah, soft. Well, what's great about it is, you can rig it up and wake it. You know, you can turn it into a line through.
Yeah, what you mean by waking it? So you could take like a weightless EWG hooker, really lightweight, and he's talking about rolling it just at the top, so it's creating a wake.
Yeah,
like you would.
And that tail right there, it'll kick that water side to side, and that nose, you can see how it's kind of, and so that's sad to see. If he goes out, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry every single day.
There's your business opportunity. Buy that. You can quit the computer business.
There we go.
Now this is not literally your mom. I know you did live with your mom, but this person's name is your mom. Asked what maybe this is your mom. Hell, I don't know. Maybe this is her username. Maybe she's witty. What is the best cheap swim bait? You're a big swim bait guy. What are a couple of your favorites? What's some of your favorite cheap ones? Or affordable?
Depending on if you're really starting to get into swim baits, the cheapest ones and the best ones are going to be solid bodies. Now, I like, because I don't live around a lot of grass lakes or a lot of cover. So, when I'm fishing these in open water, there's a reason why I like these in open water, even though that tail's real soft.
Is that a full hard body or solid body?
It's got just a hook slot, kind of like a fluke or something, right?
Yep.
So, but, if you really want to get into throwing some swim baits, believe it or not, the Bass Pro makes a version of the Kitech. And they're really good. And they're solid bodies. You're not gonna break the bank as compared to the Kitechs. Others. I mean, cheap swim baits. Those two words don't go together very often.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Cheap and good swim baits, and one of the things I actually helped come up with the design, of this, because we don't dip it all the way for the tail action. And I worked with him on the consistency and the softness of it. And, one of the things, that I explained to him was that, real swim bait guys, they'll take soft over durable, even though it sucks to go through baits. But the great thing about these is that they are, that head is all meat right there. So, you're not tearing them off.
That's oftentimes the argument. You look at a Kitech or a Gary Yamamoto Senko, and you may only get a couple fish on them, right?
Yeah.
But there's, they've got, whether it's a Kitech with that really soft, good fluid movement, or a Yamamoto Senko with that perfect fall rate and that shimmy, right? You use some of the cheap ones, they don't have salt, they might last a lot longer. And I think it's kind of finding that middle ground. The Bass Pro Shop Sticko is another good.
Very good.
Yeah, stick baits. If you want affordable, wait for one of their sales, and they sell I don't remember if it's a 25 or 50 pack, but I know I fished those for a long time because they'll have 25% off sales of those sometimes. Crap, buy a couple packs of those, and you've got enough for a couple years. But yeah, I agree. Their swim baits are good too. Pretty good durability and. They're not just going to be one fish. Another thing, if you do the nose, screw it in through the nose with a belly weighted, weedless type hook, switch out to the owner centering pins, a large, if you can get away with it. And it just means that little screw that you put in the nose of it, it's going to give you a larger screw. It's grabbing more meat. Unlike one of those really little tiny ones you tear out the nose and you can't screw it in anymore. It's just got more to grab on into in there and hold. So that's another way to kind of make them last a little longer.
Especially if you're using those complete hollow bodies where they're hollow from nose to tail.
I don't use those a lot. What's the difference? Or like when would you go to one over the other?
Well, gosh, you get me into talking about swim baits,
I know.
man.
We're already at hour 15. Give me the book note version.
These, like I say, I fish these in a lot of clear water. I like them because they're durable. I like them because they have a tight wiggle. When I'm in a little dirtier water, that's when I'm going to go to those. They've got a real big roll to their body.
So they're displacing more water, more vibration.
Exactly. And you have to have, because you've got to remember, on those baits, from here to here, you can literally take them and blow them up like a balloon from the tail. They are completely hollow. There's probably, I don't know, a 16th of plastic right here in the nose. And if you don't have a screw that's literally, you can almost see it behind the eyes when you screw it in, you'll go through those baits just casting them. I mean, you can't. I've literally hauled off and cast them off just casting because I've had the wrong screw on them. So 90% of the time, if I'm using those, especially like with a belly weight, I'm going to use them around a lot of cover. They're great around cover, boat docks. You can skip them real easy, and those are you have to have that big, large center pin, or at least just some sort of large screw lock on there.
That's kind of like the bite. Yep, I saw a couple of people talking about the Miyagi. That's kind of one of my old school. I guess they're not really old school, but one that I've had a lot of luck with is, it's got that hard body up front. I don't have one here, but it's got a hard body up front. But the nice thing they do is they take that hook channel and run it almost to the top of the body. So another thing that sucks about swim baits is when you're using like the weedless belly weighted hooks is the hookup ratio on them sucks, right? It's always kind of a trade-off. You use the open hook, you've got a lot better hookup ratio, but you get snagged on everything. You go belly weighted, hey, I'm not getting snagged, but the hookup ratio kind of sucks. So that's one thing I like about theirs is they've got that back. I call it the backbone plastic, and it kind of goes down to the head, which is fatter. So you've got meat to screw into, and then once you run that hook up through, that actual hook point comes way up above that back. Instead of just barely poking up like on some of them, it comes way up above it. So you've got more actual hook to hook that fish. So that's something kind of think about too.
That Miyagi swimmer you were saying old school, that actually is an old school design. That design has been around that was one of the early first, styles of swim baits that were actually out on the market. That style of the big head and it just tapers down to that. I haven't got
into that much, like the big Swimbait 3. That's something I would say within the past 7 years, kind of when I got back into fishing. Like for me, a Swimbait, my old man used to throw them, and I've still got some. There's these little like 3-inch. They look like you can get them at Walmart still. Shad, something they call them. Oh yeah. But it's they've got kind of like the belly with the little boot tail.
Yeah.
With like a black belly and a gray belly. And then I also had some that were tiger stripe, white with like tiger stripe.
Yeah.
So to me, finesse swim baits, I threw a ton of those, but like anything over 3 inches was foreign to me until, 7 years ago. So again, even the term swim bait is relative to people. If you'd have told me swim bait 7 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, like a little 3-inch swim bait. Those are awesome. Where you're like, oh hell no, a 7-inch is the way to go, bro.
Well, that 5 and 6 inch are kind of my go-to slot. That's big enough. That's what I call tournament ready. Those are the tournament ready swim baits, for the big bites. Swim baits, I got into throwing swim baits because I fish all this clear water. And, you see guys out there throwing, lipless cranks and stuff like that. And, and then you get to thinking about it, I always tell people think outside the box as much as you can because, in that ultra clear water on those bright blue sunny days, how many stupid green worms on a drop shot do you think those fish have seen go by them, this week, today?
Yep.
You know, they've seen 20 green worms. So why not throw a big fat swim bait that looks real natural, that's really translucent, and they go, I like that steak.
That's
I
a
think
little
I'm gonna
different.
shoot.
And I've had days like that. There was a day, I don't remember when that was. 2 years ago, I was at one of my local lakes. There's not a ton of size in there, but like I couldn't even get a bite. Like it's got a ton of pound and a halfers. You hear that on my channel a lot. It's got a ton of those, but like no really big fish. I couldn't get anything to bite. And I switched over. It was the first time I used it. We had come home from Wisconsin. We stopped at Cabela's, and I got the grande bass. I can't even tell you. Snako, I think it is. It's like half Cinco and half like ribbed Cinco. And I started throwing that, and it's got a different wobble. And I was fishing next to people catching fish left and right. You know, they were literally throwing a Cinco. I don't know what it was, if it was a yum dinger or whatever, but catching left and right. So that's always a thing to me, is like, did I just happen to hit a feeding window, or was it that subtle difference? That's what's always hard to me in those situations, But
well, that's one of the deals, It's like okay, everybody in the chat room, raise your hand if when it gets tough you downsize.
Right. Yep.
So
Or go finesse. Do you go finesse?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Aren't we doing the same thing? Because that's what's been instilled in us. Downsize. It's tough. Downsize. And there's some days you do need to slow down. You do need to downsize. Now, that's the biggest mistake. I tell people all the time when you're fishing swim baits, the biggest mistake is don't fish it like a crankbait. Don't fish it like a slow. You want it going slow. That's the big key. No matter what depth level you count it down to, it is a nice, slow
So you're not putting action in it. You're letting it look real natural. You're not jerking it. You're not bumping it. You're just letting it do its natural looking. Yep. It's like a dumb
Every
fish.
once in a while, I might stop it just so that I make sure it's staying in that depth level that I want, and then I'm just going to crank it. I'm not going to twitch it. And 90% of the time, as long as I've fished swim baits, 90% of the time, and a great example is when I throw out there and I'm fishing that swim bait on that ledge and I'm reeling it back, and I feel thunk. And what they've done is they've come up and hit it from the side, but they've just missed the hook. And as soon as you feel that dunk and they don't take it and you swing, they're gone.
It's gone.
You slow it back down. But if you'll sit there and you can be patient, and they'll go dunk, dunk, dunk. And then all of a sudden you'll feel that rod go whoop, and then you swing on them. And then the biggest thing I can always tell you about a swim bait is put your rod tip in the water when you fight them. Do not fight it like a jig. Because, you got a hook right here, all kinds of plastic here and here. That thing just wrenches itself out.
Yeah, get a net. She's got strong hands. She'll help you.
Yeah.
Fish and Gramps asked, apparently there's been a ton of people asking it. Debo, they want to know what type of grips are on your frog reel. And actually, the reason I was reading this is because it made me think of a frog. So first, frog reel I was using, if you're talking about those round blue ones, they were the Daiwa, I forget what they were, Daiwa power handles or whatever. I got them on Amazon. I've since switched off. I've been trying, and this is going to be a video I've got coming soon. Speed Spool makes a 110, I want to say, handle that I like because the knobs are longer on it. So the Daiwa, they're round and they're win and they're nice because they're really grippy, but they're kind of short. The Spool Speed and Gromexis is another one. The actual little handle that you grab onto is longer, and I personally like it especially for frogging. So those are three nice ones to look at. But what made me think about that, Hank, is you were talking about the swim bait. Man, I can't stress enough the same thing for a frog. There'll be a lot of times where you'll throw up in there and that frog will blow up. And don't get me wrong, sometimes, if it's in really mucky stuff, they'll keep hitting it. They're in a little territorial spot and you can go over them 5 times until you finally get them. Other times, if I'm throwing up under an overhang and that fish has a real good blow up, you've got one chance. So if it blows up and you miss it, don't yank it out of there and then try throwing it again and messing up 5 more casts. Just leave it and let the ripples disappear. Because what you're talking about and what I've seen from guys talking about topwater strikes is those bass will come up and they'll try to stun it or they'll tail hit it and they'll come up and boom, try to disorient that thing. Imagine an actual frog. Christ, that'd be like getting T-boned by a F-150, and you're laying there like, oh, what the hell's going on? And then that bass is going to come up and just slurp it. And I've had that happen a million times. So if you can resist that urge, that's why a lot of people will see me and have commented on that. I'll see that blow up and I'll wait until I feel just a little bit of pressure on the line, and that's when I'll swing, just like you're talking about for a swim bait. Now you'll have guys the other way. I know guys that'll say as soon as you see that blow up, swing for the fences. You're either getting them or you're not. That's fine. I know some guys that are completely on that, and I think you just kind of have to find what works for you. But, maybe if you're in one of those aggressive spots, you swing and miss and you can throw back in, that works. But if they're a little finicky, you might want to wait to swing. But we're at almost an hour and a half. I'm not going to keep people on. I saw a bunch of frog stuff. James Murray loves frog fishing. I do too. I can talk frogs. Maybe we'll have a whole frog episode. I'll get Dean Rojas on. He offered to be on the channel. I'm kidding. He doesn't have any idea who I am. But Hank, what do you have for a sign out? Any other BassGeek words of wisdom for anybody starting out? What do you think? Anybody new getting into bass fishing? I know we help a lot of beginner folks out. What do you think?
Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
KISS method?
Exactly. When you're starting out, like you said, if you're especially fishing from the bank, a Texas rig's great to start with. Just keep it simple. Don't let all the pretty colors overwhelm you. I used to walk into a store and I've got 100 baits in colors that I will never use. But I keep it to, most of the time, 5 colors now. I use 5 colors. You can keep it to 2. You can keep it to 3. Gerald Swindell.
3 is what I'd say. Yep.
Yeah. One of the pros, Gerald Swindell, he uses 2 jigs, a brown and a black. As he says, if they ain't biting the brown, they biting the black. If they ain't biting the black, they biting the brown. If they ain't biting the black or the brown, they biting the black-brown.
Yeah, and that's kind of me here. Like in the Midwest, if I've got like a whitish color, a green pumpkin, and then some dark, like a black and purple for me, or a black and blue, like that. That's the gambit right there, and that can do most everything,
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to keep you late. Everybody, give BassGeek a thumbs up. Give him a follow over at BassGeek on YouTube. I think it's the same thing on Instagram, right?
Yep.
Okay. Give him a follow. I know you're an hour ahead, so it's what is it 10:30 there? I'm keeping you up past your bedtime, aren't I?
No, yeah, 10:30.
Yeah. See, you're so sleepy you don't even know what the hell time it is. I won't keep you late.
I work swing shift, man. I have no concept of time anymore.
I know. I don't ever leave my house. I just talk to cameras all the time, so I don't know what time it is either. Well, we'll let y'all go. I'll post the winners for anybody that donated tonight. I'll post those winners as a comment once I get the comments up. And pick the winner. Otherwise, thank you everybody else so much for watching tonight. Hank and I appreciate you both. Thanks for watching, and until next time.